Good morning. My name is Jenny Hobbs, and I serve as president on your DuPage UU Church Board of Trustees. We want to welcome everyone this morning to our open and inclusive virtual community. As Unitarian Universalists, we hold that there are many spiritual paths to truth and meaning, and pledge to support one another as we explore these paths. We are so glad you were able to find us and join us for our live stream service today. Please check the church website at www.dupageuchurch.org for updates. If you search under DuPage UU Church on Facebook, you will find a number of ways to be in community with us as well. Today, join us for coffee and conversation. Today and each Sunday, join us for our Zoom social time conversation at 11:30 following the service. Zoom gives us a way to socialize with Reverend Connie and friends in large and small groups. We hope to see you there. The Zoom link can be found on the Members tab of our website, the order of service, and in the weekly church email. Today is also Zoom with your board. Your Board of Trustees would like to invite you to Zoom with your board today at noon following the coffee hour conversation. Join your Board of Trustees on Zoom the first Sunday of every month for updates regarding the board's work toward goals you have helped define. We'd love to have you join us. The Zoom link can be found on the Members tab of our website and in the weekly church email. Today is also Science Sunday. We would love for you to join us today at noon for Science Sunday. Join with our YouTube link that appears on the church website homepage, the same link used to join this service. Thank you.
We gather in religious community, celebrating the gifts of life, recognizing our part in the greater wholeness, lifting up those things that are worthy of our attention, learning to be our best selves. And as we light the chalice, these words by Vanessa Southern. We light our chalice, symbol of our faith, for truth sought through a questioning heart and an attentive mind, and for love pursued through obstacles inside and outside our own human heart, and for forgiveness and all it entails, the place where truth and love meet and merge. Our opening hymn is number 368, Now Let Us Sing.
Now let us sing to the power of the faith within. Now let us sing to the Join me in saying our spoken affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. It's time to gather. Do you know what this is? It's a ball. It's used to play baseball, which is a game. And I wonder how many of you play baseball or softball. Maybe in your park district or school, or you have a team at work. Many of you might even play pickup games with your friends in the neighborhood. And what happens in baseball? You hit the ball with the bat and try to run around the bases. Is it hard to hit the ball? Yes. You miss it or it flies off in different directions. And sometimes when the ball flies off in a different direction, it hits something it's not supposed to, like breaking a window, crushing some flowers, or even hitting a car that was parked nearby. When we make a mistake, we need to find the strength to repair what went wrong. And that means owning up to the damage, saying you're sorry. And when we repair our mistakes, we are renewed, made happy again. It's hard to do, but it's the right thing to do. And when we do the right thing, we feel back in balance with the world. Our Jewish friends celebrate a holiday this month called Yom Kippur, as a time to say, I'm sorry. And in our service today, we're going to talk about saying, I'm sorry, and trying to repair our mistakes.
Please join us for our song affirmation.
Rejoice in love we know and share, in love and beauty everywhere. Rejoice in truth that makes us free, and in the good that yet shall be.
Our story today is The Hardest Word by Jacqueline Jules.
This story happened a long, long time ago when the world had many large and fabulous creatures. One of those creatures was a gigantic yellow bird with dark red wings and a purple forehead. He was called the Ziz.
The Ziz was so huge that when he spread out his wings, he blocked the sun, as if he were a dark rain cloud. And every time he flew over a town, all the mothers would call to their children,
Come inside quickly before it rains.
Well, this made the Ziz sad. He loved children and didn't want to spoil their playtime.
So the Ziz started flying around at night when no one would notice that he made the sky dark with his gigantic wings. That worked for a while. Then one night, the big Ziz flew too high and he bumped into a star.
Sizzle, snap, bang! The star fell out of the sky and down to earth. It burned a big hole in the ground.
The next morning, when the Ziz saw the big hole, he was worried.
What can I do to cover this hole?
He thought about it for a while and came up with an idea. He stretched out his huge wings and went back up into the sky. This time he knocked down a cloud. Plop. The cloud was full of rain and it filled the big hole with water. Now the big hole was a lovely pond, perfect for swimming.
That mistake is all fixed.
One day, however, the Ziz made a mistake he could not fix. It was the week before Yom Kippur. He was flying along, not watching where he was going, and he flew smack into the tallest pine tree in the forest. Boom! The tree fell over and knocked over another tree. That tree knocked down another tree, and the tree fell on the vegetable garden behind the synagogue.
Smash! Squash! Oops. Oh no, not the vegetable garden. It belongs to the children. I ruined the tomatoes, the corn, the pumpkins, the beans, the gourds, the squash. All the vegetables the children had worked so hard to plant are smashed to bits. I can't knock down a cloud and fix this.
The Ziz flew home and sat in his own garden to think. He had watched the children plant their vegetable garden. Every year they harvested the garden and would decorate their sukkah with corn stalks, wheat stems, and gourds.
A sukkah is a temporary shelter built for the harvest during the Festival of Shelters or Festival of Ingathering. The Ziz wondered what the children would do this year. So the Ziz spread out his wings and flew off to chat with God. The Ziz had a special place where he liked to talk to God. It was Mount Sinai. The Ziz was so huge that when he stood on Mount Sinai, his purple feathered head reached right into heaven.
Are you back again? Are you back again? What have you done this time?
I knocked over a big tree, and it knocked over another tree, and that tree smashed a vegetable garden.
The children's garden?
Yes,
That's a problem.
I can't knock down a cloud and make this better.
No, you can't.
What should I do?
I want you to do something for me.
Anything.
I want you to search the earth and bring back the hardest word.
The hardest word.
Yes, now go.
And the Ziz stretched his big wings and went off to search.
The wind is moving, and I am standing still. A life of pages waiting to be filled. A heart that's hopeful, a head that's full of dreams. But this becoming is harder than it seems. Feels like I'm looking for a reason, roaming through the night to find my place in this world, my place in this world. Not a lot to lean on, I need the light to help me find my place in this world, my place in this world. There are millions down on their knees, among the many and anyone you meet. Hear me asking, where do I belong? Is there a vision that I can call my own? Show me. I'm looking for a reason, roaming through the night to find my place in this world, my place in this world. Not a lot to lean on, I need the light to help me
Yes, now go.
The Ziz stretched his big wings and went off to search. He flew over mountains. He flew over trees. He flew over valleys. He flew over seas. Flap, flap, I'm the biggest bird. Flap, flap, searching for the hardest word.
After searching the whole day, the Ziz stopped to rest at the edge of a forest. In a house nearby, he heard a mother and child arguing.
I don't want to go to bed, said the boy.
You need your rest, said the mother.
I'm not tired.
Good night.
That's it. Ziz flapped his wings. The hardest word. I found it.
Ziz flew as fast as he could to Mount Sinai. With great excitement, he put his bird feet down on the top and poked his purple-feathered head up into heaven.
I found it. I found the hardest word.
What is it? God asked.
It's good night. Every child hates that word. And Ziz did a little dance right on top of Mount Sinai. He loved being right.
Good night is a hard word for children, God agreed.
I knew it. I knew it.
But there is another word even harder.
There is? And Ziz slumped over, disappointed.
There is, God declared. Go and find it.
So the Ziz spread out his mighty wings and flew off to search. He flew over mountains. He flew over trees. He flew over valleys. He flew over seas. Flap, flap, I'm the biggest bird. Flap, flap, searching for the hardest word. And after searching the whole day, the Ziz stopped at a big feast on the grounds of a castle. And he listened. And with so many people talking, he felt someone would say the hardest word.
I'm hungry, a little girl said to her mother. May I have some biscotti, please?
The mother smiled. Oh, you mean you want spaghetti?
Yes, biscotti.
That's it. Ziz realized, I've got it now.
He spread out his great big wings and flew back to Mount Sinai. He planted his bird feet on the mountaintop and poked his purple-feathered head into heaven.
I know the hardest word.
What is it? God asked.
It's spaghetti. And Ziz hopped up and down on one foot. Standing still was so hard, especially when he was so excited.
Spaghetti is a hard word to say.
Didn't I tell you? And Ziz hopped some more.
But there is another word even harder.
There is? Oh.
There is. Go out and find it.
So the Ziz stretched out his big wings and went back out to search. He flew over mountains. He flew over trees. He flew over valleys. He flew over seas. Flap, flap, I'm the biggest bird. Flap, flap, searching for the hardest word.
The Ziz searched for 3 more days. He brought back lots of words to Mount Sinai. Words like rock, rhinoceros, ridiculous, and Rumpelstiltskin. Each time, God sent the Ziz back out to find another word.
By the evening of Yom Kippur, the Ziz had brought over 100 words to Mount Sinai, and God had not accepted any of them. The Ziz was discouraged. He had tried and tried, and he flew back to Mount Sinai to have one more discussion with God.
What word did you bring this time?
No word.
No word?
No. I've come to say I'm sorry. I can't find the hardest word.
You can't?
No, I'm sorry.
You're sorry?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Good job, you found the hardest word.
I did?
Yes, the hardest word is sorry. While all the words you brought me were hard, sorry is the hardest.
Well, I always say I'm sorry on Yom Kippur.
Well, you should say it other times, too.
Like when I smashed the garden.
That's right.
So the Ziz thanked God and pulled his purple feathered head out of heaven. And then he spread out his great big wings and flew back to the children's garden. And on the way, he stopped at his own garden and gathered a big basket of fruits and vegetables for the children.
It was time to say the hardest word. We hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows. A memorial service for Mary Ellen Matthews, who died on April 10th, has been scheduled for Saturday, October 9th at 11 a.m. at Cantini Golf Course in Wheaton. Mary Ellen's son, the Reverend Kent Matthews, and daughter Kristen will facilitate the memorial service. Jane Bodine's mother, Beatrice Bodine, died on September 1st at the age of 95 in a nursing home in Cave in Rock, Illinois. Jane tells us that Beatrice was a positive, optimistic progressive who taught her daughters to care about others, to fight for the rights of others, to care about birds and the environment, and to keep vocal about voting irregularities and politics. We share sorrow about fire and flood, acts of violence, disasters natural and unnatural. We remember those who are experiencing losses of various kinds and those facing health challenges. We are aware that many are faced with heightened difficulties presented by these times that continue to be challenging for all. Even when the cares of the world weigh on us, may we find joy in our connections with each other and in the pleasures that life holds. Let us care for one another and for ourselves in all the ways we can. As we hold each other in our hearts and minds with all our joys and all our sorrows, whether spoken or unspoken, let's take a moment to be quiet together.
Imagine this. On the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, every fall, every year, the people make their peace with anyone they have wronged or slighted or injured or any way neglected in the past 12 months. The task is not to patch things up, smooth things over, reach a compromise, or sweep mistakes and uneasy memories under the rug. The task is not to feel better. The task is ownership. The goal is truth for its own redemptive sake. I did this. I said this to you, and it's wrong. I neglected this. I botched this. I betrayed you thusly. I demeaned you, whether you ever knew it or not. This is the truth in which both of us are living. I ask you to forgive me. Imagine how many breaths you would need to take. Imagine how many doors you'd have to knock on, how many phone calls you'd have to make, how many letters, how many lunches and coffees, how many awkward moments with your children and your parents, and with strangers, that cashier with whom you spoke so sharply with. Awkward is irrelevant. The task is not about comfort, it's about truth, about wholeness and holiness, restoration. Imagine this. Someone has been preparing all year to speak with you, to write to you, to ask you a hard question. Perhaps in some way not quite conscious, you have even known this, and you've been preparing too. Finally, you answer the door or the phone or open the letter with shaky hands, and there it is, what you thought you'd been longing for, but really have dreaded. Someone is asking your forgiveness. The task is not about comfort, it's about truth. Awkward is irrelevant. You get to choose now. You have to choose whether and how you will participate in restoration. Abandon the pleasant piety that claims knee-jerk forgiveness as the unquestioned moral course. You get to choose which way to be right in this case, between you as persons and with all your gods. What response will make the world more whole? Imagine something yearns in us to come round right. Something creaky, rusty, heavy, almost calcified within us, tries, in spite of us and all of our fears and self-deceptions, to turn and creak and turn again and come round a little truer. Something in us stretches towards conversion. Imagine healing wholly from within. Please join us in hymn number 16, "'Tis a Gift to be Simple."
Tis a gift to be simple, tis a gift to be free, tis a gift to calm down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true
The following is a litany of atonement by Robert Eller Isaacs.
For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible, we forgive ourselves and each other, and we begin again in love.
For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others,
We forgive
ourselves and each other, and we begin again in love.
for the selfishness which sets us apart and alone. We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit, we forgive ourselves and each other, and we begin again in love.
For losing sight of our unity, we forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness, we forgive ourselves and each other, and we begin again in love. Youth Outlook is our special collection for September. Youth Outlook is the first social service agency in Illinois solely dedicated to support the LGBTQ plus youth. They work in 6 counties in the Chicago suburbs, offering drop-in centers for youth, parent support, and community education. And our church is their home base. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values.
I'm sorry may be the hardest thing to say. I forgive you may be almost as difficult. I'm sorry and I forgive you go together. And what makes both of those things so hard to say is not just about the words, of course, it's about the feelings underneath the words. For a while, I was holding on to one or two unforgivenesses. I tried the word grudge, but that word feels trivial in relation to what I was feeling. So I'll call them unforgivenesses. I wasn't ready or wasn't able or just didn't want to give them up. For a while, my interior dialogue between my best self and my not-so-best self about a transgression that at the time I considered pretty serious went something like this. You should forgive. I don't want to. Have you forgiven yet? I don't want to. But forgiveness would be good for you. I don't want to. For a while, that's where I needed to stay. But now I've moved to a different place and my heart feels lighter than it once did. This must be how forgiveness feels. On the other side of forgiveness, I have also been forgiven. My father and I had a rocky relationship. When I became an adult, I figured out that he had a diagnosable mental illness. My very mixed feelings included relief at finding an explanation for why I found it so difficult to reason with him. At a point nearly 20 years ago, when we were not in very close touch, I became aware that my father had gone missing. After many phone calls and a long drive, I located him in a mental hospital. When I walked into my father's room, he was sitting on the side of his bed, looking as if he had been waiting for me, which maybe he had been. When he saw me, he immediately said, I forgive you for your shortcomings. He didn't specify what he thought those shortcomings were, although I suspect that some of them were the same things that he considered shortcomings in himself. The only thing I could think of to say was, thank you. And then he asked, do you forgive me for mine? This did not seem like the time for an assessment of my very complicated feelings on the matter. I said, yes, I forgive you. And somehow that forgiveness went deeper than words. The forgiveness that my father and I shared very close to the end of his life lightens my heart. Forgiveness can be difficult. Of course, there are the little things that happen every day. We do something or say something we shouldn't. We say, I'm sorry, and the other person says, no problem. Someone else does something or says something they shouldn't. They say, I apologize, and we say, apology accepted. And for most of those little things that happen every day, forgiveness is complete, and we can truly forget about it. But it's not always quite that simple. I've known people, and maybe you have too, who seem to enjoy holding on to grudges about things that, at least from the outside, don't seem all that serious. But what about the transgressions that are not only unforgettable but unforgivable? What if the transgressor hasn't said, I'm sorry, hasn't asked for forgiveness, or doesn't want it or even think they need it? It can be particularly difficult to forgive someone who doesn't acknowledge their wrongdoing. How can we forgive someone who doesn't recognize what they did or who defends themselves against accepting that they wronged us or hurt us? Maybe we can find a way to remember and yet forgive anyway. Sometimes forgiveness can be a gift of grace, which does not need to be earned or deserved, that we give to someone else. But forgiveness is not necessarily something that we do for the other person, but is something we do for ourselves to lighten our own hearts. It can be a gift to tell someone we have forgiven them. But maybe even more important is the gift we give to ourselves by forgiving another person. whether or not that other person even knows we have forgiven them. Sometimes forgiveness may be a matter of deciding that the relationship with another person is more important than the transgression, even if that transgression was a serious one. Sometimes part of the process of forgiveness may be a formal process of reconciliation, where each person talks about what happened, each talks about what they need to move forward, and each makes promises to the other. If someone asks us for forgiveness or asks whether we forgive them, the response may be, "I'll try," or "I'm working on it." When a transgression has been serious, the expectation of forgiving and forgetting can dishonor our experience as if it weren't significant enough to remember. Forgiving, not forgetting, means that we keep our hearts open and that we learn from what happened so that we can protect ourselves from future hurts and set the boundaries we need to set. We may need to say either out loud or in our own hearts and minds, "I forgive you, but I won't allow you to do that again." The hurts and losses of our lives are part of what shapes us, but we need not be defined or limited by those hurts and losses. Over time, through a process of forgiveness, the hurt diminishes in centrality in our lives. The point is not to forget, but not to dwell on the wrong that was done to us either. The point is to put the transgression in perspective so that we can move forward in our lives. It has been said that forgiveness means giving up all hope of having a better past. That may be true in the sense that what's past is past and can't be changed. But what can be changed is how we relate to the past. Forgiveness means embracing hope for transforming the past so that we can build a better future. Our closing hymn is number 179, Words That We Hold Tight.
Words that we hold tight won't let us go. Paths we don't follow will haunt us so. What will undo us is not our friend. Show us, O Spirit, how to befriend. Show us how to forgive to all who live. Show us forgiveness that we may live. To speak of loving is not to love. Lies move among us, below, above. When we are raging, needing to mend, show us, O Spirit, how to befriend. Show us how to forgive to all who live. Show us forgiveness that we may live. When love is doubtful, choice is not clear, we turn to worship to cast out fear. Teach us forgiveness, make love our end. Show us, O Spirit, how to befriend. Show us how to forgive to all who live. Show us forgiveness that we may live.
As we extinguish the chalice flame, these words by Annie Forster. As far as our love flows, as far as our hope grows, As far as our yearning goes, we are no farther one from another. And may we live our lives fully and creatively so that we may be a blessing to ourselves, to each other, and to all those whose lives we touch.